In the quiet, unassuming row house neighborhood of Bellwood Terrace, the houses stood shoulder to shoulder, their basements divided by walls of brittle brick, a thin and fragile boundary between lives. Among these homes was number 12, occupied by Marie Dalton, a reserved but kind-hearted woman in her late 30s. Marie had moved into the neighborhood a year ago, drawn by the charm of the historic houses and the promise of a peaceful community. Marie lived alone, her days structured and predictable. She worked as a graphic designer for a small firm and often brought her projects home, losing herself in the glow of her computer screen. Her evenings were quiet, save for the muffled sounds of her neighbor at number 14, an odd man named Arthur Griggs. Arthur was a wiry, disheveled figure in his mid-50s with deep-set eyes that seemed to gleam with a strange intensity. He was a recluse, rarely seen during the day, but at night his presence became palpable. Strange noises would emanate from his basement, metallic clinks, low muttering, and occasionally the unsettling hum of power tools. Marie dismissed these sounds as the eccentric habits of a night owl, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When she left or returned home, Arthur's eyes would follow her, lingering just a moment too long. The harassment began subtly. Late-night banging on the shared wall would jolt Marie awake. At first, she tried to ignore it, but the pounding grew more deliberate, as though Arthur was trying to send a message. One evening, she confronted him at his door. Arthur's response was unnerving. He stared at her with a vacant smile and mumbled, "The walls talk, you know. They tell secrets." Shaken, Marie retreated to her home, locking her doors and drawing her curtains. Marie's co-workers noticed her growing fatigue. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her once cheerful demeanor was replaced with quiet anxiety. Despite their concern, Marie brushed off their questions. Then, one Monday morning, Marie didn't show up for work. Calls and messages went unanswered. By Wednesday, her manager reported her absence to the police. When officers Kelly and Ramirez arrived at number 12 for a wellness check, they found the house eerily silent. The front door was locked, but a faint hum could be heard from the basement. Breaking the door open, the officers stepped inside, the air heavy with a strange metallic tang. The house was immaculate, as though Marie had tidied it before vanishing. The only thing out of place was a faint trail of reddish smudges leading to the basement door. Kelly signaled Ramirez to follow as they descended the creaking stairs. The hum grew louder. In the dimly lit basement, they found a hole in the brick wall at the back. Several bricks had been meticulously removed, leaving a jagged opening large enough to crawl through. Beyond the hole, in the neighboring basement, the hum of an electric table saw filled the air. Peering through the hole, Kelly's flashlight revealed a nightmare. Arthur stood over a blood-soaked workbench, his face spattered with crimson. His hands worked methodically, guiding the saw through a lifeless arm. On the floor lay the mutilated remains of a woman. Marie. Arthur turned, his eyes wild as he spotted the officers. With a guttural scream, he lunged at the wall, clawing through the hole as Kelly and Ramirez pulled their weapons. "Stay where you are," Kelly shouted, but Arthur didn't stop. A single gunshot echoed in the basement, and Arthur crumpled to the floor, groaning. As backup arrived, Arthur was restrained and placed in the back of a police van. The scene was cordoned off, and forensic teams swarmed the basements, documenting the grisly evidence. Among the items recovered were photographs of Marie, taken through her windows, and a journal filled with incoherent ramblings about merging lives and tearing down walls. Further investigation revealed a hidden door in Arthur's basement. Behind it was a secret room that chilled even the most seasoned officers. In the center of the room stood a glass showcase, illuminated by a single flickering bulb. Inside were 12 severed heads, meticulously preserved and hanging from hooks. Below each head, matching torsos were suspended like grotesque marionettes. Each display bore a number, corresponding to the order of Arthur's victims. Marie's was the 12th. The discovery of this macabre collection unveiled Arthur's horrifying obsession with the number 12. The journal entries hinted at his belief in a twisted ritual, that by unifying 12 lives, he could achieve some perverse transcendence. The connection to the houses was undeniable. Arthur had fixated on numbers 12 and 14, viewing the thin wall between them as symbolic, a barrier he needed to dismantle to complete his dark vision. At the station, Arthur was left in the van under supervision. When the officers returned to escort him inside, they found him slumped in the back seat, a belt from his pants wrapped tightly around his neck. He was dead. The case left the neighborhood reeling. Residents moved out, unable to bear the weight of what had happened. Number 12 and number 14 stood abandoned, their basements sealed. Over time, urban legends grew around the houses. Some claimed to hear Marie's voice crying for help, while others swore they saw Arthur's shadow pacing behind the boarded-up windows. For those who lived there, Bellwood Terrace became a place of nightmares, a chilling reminder that sometimes the walls between us are far too thin,